Tonight on Newsbeat, Louisiana released nearly 2,000 prisoners earlier today. We'll tell you why.
More violence in Baton Rouge last night. At least one is dead after 3 separate shootings across the city.
And hear the latest on the terror attacks in New York. Newsbeat starts right now. Hello and welcome to Newsbeat. I'm Nadine Obusada.
And I'm Abby Rocha. Thanks for joining us. One of the few successes of the 2017 Louisiana legislative session came to fruition today. State prisons released nearly 2,000 nonviolent inmates as part of the comprehensive criminal justice reform package. Before the bills became law, Louisiana jailed more residents per capita than any other community in the world. New state law allows the state to release nonviolent offenders after serving 35% of their sentence, down from 40%. The package is expected to save the state more than $250 million over the next 10 years.
It took a little over 10 months in 2017 for Baton Rouge to surpass its homicide totals for 2016.
As October turned November last night, that number increased again.
ABR current coroner Bo Clark confirmed 33-year-old Jonathan Briggs is dead after a shooting near Segan around 9:30 last evening. Micah West, also 33, was shot and killed on Kleinert Avenue after he was forced his way into a home.
Police also responded to a shooting on Aliquippa Street. At least one person suffered an injury in that incident also.
8 are dead and 12 injured after the worst terror attack in New York City since 9/11. Now, NYPD says the driver had been planning the attack for weeks. CNN Kristen Holmes reports.
This was an act of terror, and a particularly cowardly act of terror aimed at innocent civilians.
It was just after 3 p.m. Tuesday when Seyfulo Saipov, a 29-year-old Uzbek national, drove a rented truck into a crowd of bicyclists and pedestrians near the World Trade Center.
It happened out of nowhere. I was walking down the street. It was a normal day, and just out of nowhere, I see people running and screaming.
Witnesses also report the suspect shouted Allahu Akbar, and a law enforcement official says there was a note in the truck claiming the attack was done in the name of ISIS.
He was associated with ISIS, and he was radicalized domestically, and he's a depraved coward.
Saipov was shot and captured by NYPD officer Ryan Nash.
After the collision, the driver of the truck, a 29-year-old male, exited the vehicle brandishing 2 handguns. A uniformed police officer assigned to the 1st Precinct confronted the subject and shot him in the abdomen. The subject was wounded and transported to a local hospital.
The focus now, the investigation into what happened and why.
That work's going to be done by the FBI, by the NYPD, and all of our partners to determine exactly who this man is, what moved him to this horrible act.
In Lower Manhattan, I'm Kristen Holmes.
President Donald Trump offered condolences on Twitter this morning, but insinuated the attack could have been prevented had the United States adopted a merit-based immigration program some time ago.
Just days after a grand jury issued indictments in Robert Mueller's investigation into election meddling, Facebook says at least 29 million people have viewed Russian-linked propaganda on their feeds in the last 3 years. One Kremlin-linked Russian company created around 80,000 posts intended to spark division over issues like race, religion, gun violence, and LGBTQ rights. Because some users shared these posts, as many as 126 million Americans could have seen the posts on their timeline, but only 29 million actually interacted with them. Facebook's PR team says it's deeply disturbed with the news and working to prevent the spread of misinformation in the future.
President Trump has nominated the next U.S. attorney for the Baton Rouge area. If confirmed, Brandon Freeman will become the next attorney for the state's Middle District, which covers 9 parishes. Freeman currently serves as the director of the criminal division for state's AG's office. Democrat Walt Green resigned from the role in March after U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions asked Major Obama appointees to step down. Corey A. Munson has served in his interim.
More disturbing news in entertainment tonight. New allegations of sexual misconduct against actor Kevin Spacey. Filmmaker Tony Montana says he was groped by Spacey at a Los Angeles bar in 2003. This follows Anthony Rapp's claim that Spacey tried to seduce him when Rapp was 14 years old. Spacey says he does not remember the rap incident but did not deny it. In the same statement, Spacey said he was living as a gay man, drawing criticism from many in the LGBTQ community for linking potential pedophilia with his sexual orientation.
When we come back, an ESPN Baton Rouge show host shares his thoughts on the blurring lines between sports and politics.
The day you get married, it'll help you with your spouse, too. Know who you're talking to.
And I guess he's got some advice for bachelors, too. Tiger TV's Matt Houston tells us why Matt Moscona is sticking to sports in a moment.
Well, there's division at the dinner table, the classroom, and now on the playing field. As political debate becomes more vicious, it seems it's almost impossible to escape uncomfortable confrontations with friends, family, and coworkers. But one local radio host is working to provide some relief just by knowing who he's talking to.
Talk about what you started to dip your toe in the water earlier, and that's Shea Patterson.
Stick to sports. For some listeners, it's become a tired plea. But for ESPN Baton Rouge's After Further Review host Matt Moscona, it's a bit of a policy.
I don't ever want to give someone a reason to tune out of my show because of something that has nothing to do with the content of the show.
According to ESPN's Darren Rovell, the NFL has lost about 1 million viewers per week through the first half of the season compared to 2016. Some fans say they won't watch on Sundays because of player protests during the national anthem. But on AFR, there's no political division, no rhetoric, no unwelcome narratives. It's just sports.
You're going to hear a little bit about the teams you want. Hopefully I can make you laugh a little bit, be a little entertaining. But I'm certainly not going to do something that's going to force someone to leave my show, which is my livelihood.
So, Sports Talk listeners like Gunnar Sjogren tune in during their commute to get away from the political vitriol on social media.
I'm fairly good at separating both my politics and my sports viewing from one another, and they only intermingle when absolutely necessary.
Sjogren says he thinks it's important to keep up with politics, but he wants political opinions from political reporters, which is exactly why Moscona only talks about social issues on his show when they have direct impact on a team's performance.
It's staying in my lane and understanding the reason that I'm sitting in the chair behind the microphone is not to give political views.
Sjogren says on the flip side, he doesn't want to hear sports opinions from politicians. His favorite podcast, Bill Simmons.
He provides content that I want to listen to, content from a sports fan's perspective, and I find that a lot of other outlets nowadays don't have that angle to it.
Moscona attributes this culture change in journalism to social media, which he says encourages users to search for affirmation instead of information.
What do you need to know?
But even as the platforms evolve, he still follows one broadcast commandment he learned at LSU: know thy audience.
Moscona says he doesn't deserve the job if he can't find more to talk about than politics in a sports hotbed like South Louisiana. So you can hold him to that. Catch After Further Review on 104.5 FM in Baton Rouge or 100.3 in New Orleans, weekdays from 3 to 6. Well, as we stick to sports here on Newsbeat, Alex Bregman and the Houston Astros take on the LA Dodgers in a winner-take-all Game 7 in about half an hour. He was the hero in Game 5 with this walk-off hit in the 10th inning, but Bregman's performance slightly less stellar last night, 1 for 4 at the plate and left 5 runners stranded. But his defense would keep the Stros in the game until the 6th inning when Corey Seager drives in Chase Utley on the sac fly. Jock Peterson would solo to left to make it 3-1. Kenley Jansen would finish it off on the high heat to extend the series. Astros manager A.J. Hinch says the team quickly moved on from the heartbreak of Game 6 to the hope in Game 7.
I'm ready to play. This is the biggest stage, the best stage, opportunity to win the World Series in Game 7. That was immediately the message when the last out was made.
McCullers goes for Houston, Darvish for L.A. Well, the Tiger basketball season started unofficially Tuesday night. LSU traveled to New Orleans to take on Tulane. The Fighting Will Wades fell 84-74 to the Green Wave. The Tigers just couldn't get those shots to fall. 12 of 41 in the first half, 1 of 10 from 3. And get this, it's been 925 days since LSU has defeated Tulane in football, baseball, or men's basketball. Before we go back to the desk, we want to remind you we have a special edition of Newsbeat tomorrow evening. TTV Sports Director Zoyce Manaris is in studio with an in-depth look at this Saturday's matchup with that team from Tuscaloosa. Should be a good one. That's all for sports. I'm Matt Houston. Back to Abby and Nadine with the break.
Well, thank you, Matt. It's always good to have you in studio. When we come back, a man was legally forced to compliment his ex-girlfriend.
You don't want to miss it.
A man in Hawaii called and texted his ex-girlfriend 140 times over a 3-hour period.
This is a violation of a recently filed protection order against him, so the judge ordered 30-year-old Darren Young to write 144 compliments about his ex with no repeated words.
The judge ordered Young that for 200 hours of community service and slapped him with a $2,400 fine. More of the story, don't text your ex. But that's all the time we have, guys. We could talk about this for hours. Y'all have a wonderful night, and thank you for watching Newsbeat.